Ah, Romeo and Juliet, the not-so-great romance, but a stunning tragedy. The story of love and pain, gain and loss, happiness and sadness, life and death. The story with 1,000 different interpretations. The story told around the world. The young and irresponsible love that ended in the tragic, history-breaking, very foreshadowed death of...
Just proceed on with it. Keep not just these folks waiting forever.
Okay, sheesh. The tragedy of Romeo and Juliet has left many pointing fingers every which way. Whoever is at fault is always debated. Perhaps it is not the fault of a person, but the mindset of the community as a whole. The deaths of these kids could possibly be linked to the environment in which they were raised, where men are socially pressured to be emotionless macho fighting machines, violently stabbing each other with swords, while girls are molded into well-behaved, pretty items of possession. These harmful gender expectations are much more sinister than what meets the eye. Girls are taught that they must marry regardless of their wishes and do physical activities with a man in order to be contributing members of society. Boys are taught to bottle up their feelings and only express one emotion: violent, murderous rage. By forcing these teenagers to abide by the gender norms of the time, the entire community unknowingly contributed to the deaths of the charming Romeo and the fair Juliet.
Art thee done? This introduction is so big I have fallen asleep.
Well, I have to explain what the presentation is about, don't I?
Well, thee hasn't not to bore thine audience to the death in the process.
At least I didn't take a swig of poison when my girlfriend was taking a nap.
How dare thee? Make it not me biteth me own thumb at thee, thine disintemperate scoundrel.
Ugh. Well, without further ado, here are all the quotes that I could find on why harsh gender expectations are really killed Romeo and Juliet.
How about fatuitous cartoon illustrations going to, "What? Nay, stand ho!"
Ah, much better. Well, enjoy! Oh, FYI, my learning style is a tie between interpersonal and visual, as I'm sure you've already guessed by the animation and the Kahoot survey taken beforehand. Well, now that that's all cleared up, we can jump into the quotes. Men in Verona felt socially pressured to act a certain way. Even religious figures passed on this terrible expectations. When Romeo expressed his feelings through a human function, crying, Friar Lawrence lays into him.
Hold thy desperate hand. Art thou a man? Thy form cries out thy art. Thy tears are womanish, thy wild acts denote the unreasonable fury of a beast, unseemingly woman in a seeming man, or ill-beseeming beast in seeming both.
Juliet's nurse also shares her judgment of the 16-year-old boy.
Oh, he is even in my mistress's case, just in her case. Oh, woeful sympathy, piteous predicament, even so lies she, blubbering and weeping, weeping and blubbering. Stand up, stand, and you be a man. For Juliet's sake, for her sake, rise and stand.
Romeo even mocks himself, comparing himself to a woman and saying that Juliet has somehow made him more feminine.
This gentleman, the prince's near ally, my very friend, hath got his mortal hurt in my behalf, my reputation stained with Tybalt's slander. Tybalt, that an hour hath been my cousin. O sweet Juliet, thy beauty has made me effeminate, and in my temper softened valor's steel.
After Mercutio is slayed by Tybalt, Romeo feels like a lesser man and feels the need to fulfill his social obligations once more through violence and bloodshed.
Alive in triumph and Mercutio slain, away to heaven respective lenity, and fire-eyed fury be my conduct now. Now, Tybalt, take the villain back again, and that late thou gavest me, for Mercutio's soul is but a little way above our heads, staying for thine to keep him company. Either thou or I, or both, must go with him.
If Romeo hadn't been pressured into asserting his masculinity once more, he would have reported Tybalt to the prince instead of fighting fire with fire, and he never would have gotten banished, which means he never would have killed himself in the Capulet tomb. Juliet has had her fair share of abuse from her society's expectations of her, a young, beautiful woman in Verona. Juliet is expected to marry Paris regardless of her wishes. Although at first Capulet expresses concern over marrying off his daughter before she even turns 14.
My child is yet a stranger in the world. She hath not seen the change of 14 years. Let 2 more summers wither in their pride, ere we may think her ripe to be a bride.
But once the plans are in motion and Juliet does not consent, Capulet does not hesitate to put his daughter in her place for the era.
Hang thee, young baggage, disobedient wretch. I tell thee what, get thee to church, O Thursday, or never look me in the face. Speak not, reply not, do not answer me.
Despite being a woman herself, Lady Capulet is no better than her husband. She asks Juliet on her thoughts about marriage.
Mary, that Mary is the very theme I came to talk of. Tell me, daughter Juliet, how stands your disposition to be married?
And her daughter Juliet, who is the same age as an 8th or 7th grader at Dag next door, understandably responds with this.
It is an honor that I dream not of.
She tries to push her daughter into marrying Paris, a man that she doesn't even know.
What say you? Can you lack the gentleman?
Juliet, who is clearly under the boot of harsh patriarchy and gender bias, responds with,
I look to like if looking liking move, but no more deep lie and dart mine eye. Then your consent gives me strength to make it fly.
If Juliet wasn't held up to the standards of all women at this time, and she was not threatened into marriage by her father, then she would not have been forced to fake her own death to be with her true love. Although Romeo and Juliet would have faced controversy regardless, one can only think that the families would be more tolerant of their forbidden love without men and women being forced to behave in a stereotypical manner. Thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I hope I made my thesis clear. The roles of the two sexes and harsh gender stereotypes played a major role in the deaths of Romeo and Juliet.
What? Italy! I'm sorry. Good.
All I can do is the daddy part.
Do it.
Daddy.
Marvelous. Hold thy desperate hand. Art thou a man? Thy form.
This is so angry.
Is he supposed to be angry? Isn't he like yelling at Romeo?
Yeah, he is. Didn't expect that.
Should I go again or should I just keep like start again? Yeah, we'll start again.
Can you repeat what you just said there?
Only you can prevent forest fires.
Or not, it's your choice. I mean, I don't really exist, so...
Wow,
Whatever.
you're a downer, aren't you?
Yeah, put down that fire. Or I'll put you down.
Oh, Joe. Oh, sugar, trolling.
Men in Verona felt socially pressured to act a certain way. Even religious figures...